Hello, my name is Sam Fletcher. This is my first teaching demo. I am filming this in a classroom, but unfortunately I don't have any students right now because I'm substituting and this is not a business class, so it wouldn't make much sense for me to teach business to an English class. Forgive my voice, I'm getting over a cold here. I lost my voice a couple days ago, so it's not quite back to normal yet, but it's getting there. As we start off class, I will start with a bell ringer. For this particular bell ringer, I will have the students come in. When they sit down, I'll have them ask them to write 5 things in their notebook that they want to buy. It's something they can do very quickly, very easily. After that, I've given them usually 5 minutes to do that, or enough time to do attendance and get the busy work done. And then we'll go over it in class. I will ask students to give me examples of their things they want to buy, of the questions. Common examples are video games, clothes, cars sometimes, movies, could be phones, anything a young person would want to buy. And then as we go over them, I ask the students if those are considered a want or a need. And that leads us into the lesson today, which is about debt, particularly the dangers of having debt. Essentially, once I'm done with the bell ringer, then I'll go straight into this lesson, which is partially a lecture, and then I have a infograph to go over with, and then we'll have a worksheet to do at the end of class to go over it's called the debt snowball, which I think there's a couple different versions of the debt snowball. The particular one I like is from Dave Ramsey. I think he does a pretty decent job with it. So I will go ahead and get started. Okay. So class, I'd like to talk today about debt and the dangers of debt, particularly bad debt. We're going to talk about good debt also, but the dangers of bad debt. When you guys buy stuff, do you ask yourself if it's something you really need? If it's something that's going to make your life better or make you happy? Do you ask yourself, can I afford this? Is this going to cause me problems? Is it going to cause me not to pay for something else I need to pay for? Those are the kind of questions you need to be asked when you're making purchases like that. Especially young people like yourselves, because you guys are walking targets. The credit card companies have essentially maxed out the markets for adults, and the market they're looking to grow right now are young people, particularly people who are turning 18, going to college, graduating high school, because you have this whole group of people that don't have any credit cards, usually do not understand the dangers of credit cards, and want to buy stuff. So you guys are their #1 targets. When you graduate and go to college, you will have so many people trying to get you to sign up for credit cards. I remember when I was in college, there were people in the commons areas and out in the grounds in between classes with clipboards trying to get people to sign up for credit cards. Just so they can get those people into the debt cycle. That cycle of always having debt, making minimum payments, and not being able to get out of it. That's the cycle they want to get you into, okay? So when you're making a purchase decision, it's important to ask yourself 3 questions, okay? First question is, can I afford it? Is this something that you can pay for. And by that I mean you're not having to not pay for something else to pay for this. It comes out of disposable income that you have extra. It's discretionary income. It's not going to affect your financial well-being either way. The second question you want, how will I pay for it? The best answer, if you decide it's something that you actually want to buy, is to pay cash. You know, if you start using credit to buy items, again, you get caught up in that debt cycle of always owing money. And then plus you have the interest, fees, and other things that go along with that. So by using credit, you're making the items you purchase more expensive. So cash is always your best option. Number 3, what will the consequences be of my purchase? So what's going to happen because you bought this item? Is it going to make you wildly happy? Is it going to change your life? Probably not. You know, is it going to affect your financial stability? Well, it might. If you're buying something that you can't afford, or something you don't need, or if you're skipping making your car insurance payment because you want to buy this item, or you can't put gas in your car because you bought something else, then it is affecting your life and your well-being. Those things that you buy that are, you know, impulsive, we call them impulsive buys or impulsive purchases. It's when you don't ask yourself those questions when you're purchasing something. It's very common in stores if you're walking around and you see something like, oh, I would love to have that, or that's super cool. It happens with clothes, electronics, everything. When you go into stores, they have items that are, you know, posted up in the middle of aisles, or have big signs trying to get your attention. Those are, or you go by the checkout aisles, and they have different stuff lined up everywhere. Those are impulse buy items. Those are things they want you to buy just because you see it, and you're like, oh, yeah, I like that, or oh, I need one of those, rather than being something that you actually need or even intended to purchase. A lot of times you can go to the store and buy stuff that you don't even plan on buying. Those are all impulsive items. The consequence of impulse buying is that generally you're going to spend money that you did not plan on spending. And for a lot of us, that means we're going to be spending money we do not have, which then puts us in a position where we have to start using debt. Use credit cards are the most common kind, obviously, with consumer purchases. You'll just put it on the credit card, say, oh, you know, whatever, I'll pay it at the end of the month, or I'll pay it off a little bit at a time, no big deal, whatever. And the reality of it is that if you buy an item that, you know, say costs $100, and you take 6 months to pay it off, or you're just making a minimum payment, which will take who knows how long to pay off, a lot of the time you're going to be paying double or sometimes even triple what the cost of the item was due to interest or fees, which with credit cards, that is how they make their money, by interest and fees. But there is also good debt. There's a difference between bad debt and good debt. Good debt is something that you generally can't purchase using cash. I would say something like that would be a student loan. Most people aren't going to be able to go to college and write a check for their college and say, well, here you go, here's my year or 2 years of college. You know, people just don't have that much cash on hand. So student loans are one that would be a good debt, though you still have to ask yourself the questions of, can you afford it? what are the consequences be of doing this, and how will you pay for it? Because even though you're financing it, you are going to have to start paying it eventually. Once you get out of school, 6 months out of school, you have to start paying your student loans back. We'll talk about more of this in careers, but it's important when you're looking at your education and higher education is to do it on a budget or think fiscally about it. A lot of people, when they're in high school, they want to go to these big colleges or move away from home, go to out of state or private schools or whatever, and they don't realize how expensive it is and the cost involved in that. And you have to understand that if you're going to spend that much on education, you have to weigh that against what you're going to make when you get out of school. You know, if you're going to school to get a medical degree, well, I mean, that's one thing. You're going to have a huge cost, a huge investment in that, but there's something on the backside where you're going to be earning a substantial income. A lot of times people will incur these huge student loan debts and then graduate from college and get a job, and they're not making very much. You know, they're making $30,000, $40,000 a year, and they have, you know, $40,000, $50,000, even $100,000 in student loans, and they can't afford it. You know, they couldn't afford their education. So again, just like with everything else, when you're looking at education and student loans, you have to understand what you can afford by looking at what you have now, what you project you will have in the future, by what career you're going to be getting into. But we'll talk more about that in careers, and kind of got lost down that road there. Another reason for a good debt would be a mortgage on a house. Again, most people when they buy houses, they cannot pay cash. Very few people, if you buy a house for $150,000, I don't know very many people that have $150,000 cash just sitting in the bank waiting to be spent on something. So generally most people are financing their homes. Again, just like with any other purchase, you have to ask yourself those basic questions. You know, can you afford it? What do you need? Is this going to affect me long term? Is it going to put me in a position where I cannot pay my bills? So ultimately you have to ask yourself these questions with everything you purchase. Ultimately, we all have some sort of credit or some type of debt. Very few people are able to live life without any debt. It's great if you can, but most people aren't able to do it. And they also tell you that, well, you need to have debt in order to build up your credit score, which is true and not true. You need to have good debt to pay off, to build up your credit score. And by that I mean you have to have debt, you have to pay on time, you have to pay it off, and that goes back to knowing how much you can spend, what you need. But when you have something like bad debt, like if you have massive credit card debt, which is the most common, you know, there's so many people in this country that are buried in credit card debt so deep that they feel like they can never get out. They'll never be able to escape it. This is bad debt. This is where you can get into times where you're not making payments. You've overextended yourself. You cannot pay your bills. And this bad debt, this is what's going to negatively affect your credit report, which you don't want. Anytime you have a late payment, a penalty, a missed, you don't make your payments and they get sent to collections, these are things that are going to be reported on your credit report negatively and are going to hurt your credit score. And so you want to help your credit score and have some debts, but I don't want people to feel like they have to go out and get a credit card just to build up their credit score. That's not necessary. And it's dangerous because you can get into a lot of trouble with that. So when you're thinking about credit and debt, your credit score is important, but it shouldn't be considered when you're asking yourself the questions of, you know, do I need to buy this, or can I afford this? Can I take on this debt? You know, the statement, well, I need to build up my credit, should not be involved in that process at all. Let's see here. You know, we'll talk about how debt can get out of control here a little bit. You know, say you make a mistake, you buy something you don't want to, or you spend too much money on something you can't afford, your credit card bill is getting out of control, you can't pay it all off, you're making minimum monthly payments on pretty much everything you have, and you're just scraping by. That's when your debt can get out of control. I feel some people call it, you know, a snowball effect, which we're going to talk about later. Here is a different type of debt snowball. But what they mean by that is if you're only making minimum payments on your debts or your credit cards or whatever type of debt you have, most of the time you're going to have interest also accruing. So if you owe $10,000 on your credit card and you're paying $100 a month, well, you probably have that much in interest accruing every month. So you really, while you're paying it and you're not getting in trouble, you're meeting your requirements, but you're losing that money. So the $100 you're paying is actually just being tacked on to the debt on the backside, and you don't get anywhere. And that's when debt starts to roll downhill and get bigger and bigger, and like they say, snowball. As those interest fees increase and your debt load increase, everything starts getting bigger. Your minimum monthly payments go up. Your interest rates go, or not your interest rates, but the amount of interest being charged on your debt each month goes up. And you can see how it can easily get out of control. Once that gets started, it's very difficult to stop it. You know, you think about the actual cost of a purchase. You know, if you go into a store and something costs, you know, like I said, $100. Well, if you pay cash, it's going to cost you $100 plus tax or whatever else you have in your area, and then that's it, you're done, right? But if you put it on your credit card or some other type of store card or whatever you have, there's going to be an interest fee. So if you buy it on your credit card and you pay it off the next statement when you get it, within that, I believe it's 28 days or 30 days, whatever the period is for that particular card, you know, there's no problems there either, because you paid it off, you haven't had to pay any interest on it. But if you buy something for $100 on a credit card and you pay off, you know, $10, and that leaves $90 on there, well, you're going to have interest on that $90. And then the next month you pay off another $10. Well, you have $80 left and you pay interest on that $80. So every time you go through a cycle and you pay more interest on that money you spent on that purchase, the cost of that item goes up and up and up and up. So something that cost you, like I said earlier, something that cost you $100 at that time can end up costing you, you know, double the amount, sometimes even triple, depending on the size of the purchase, your interest rate, and how much you're paying. So you got to understand that as far as value goes. You know, the value of something will decrease if you put it on credit and not pay it off immediately. You know, and a lot of people actually get into trouble with that, where they cannot pay off their bills. They have so much debt that they cannot make any headway with it, no matter how hard they try, how much they try to put into it. The amount of debt always grows because they owe so much, and the interest rates increase that so much. So they get into a position where they have to look at bankruptcy. And you know, bankruptcy is not something I want to get into here, but it's basically a last resort when you cannot pay your creditors anymore. You cannot pay your bills, you cannot pay your debts back. So once you have all this bad debt accrued, and hopefully you don't, but if you do, or even if it's good debt, it's still a good idea to reduce your debt as much as possible. You know, people get 30-year mortgages. Well, mortgage is a good debt, but you still want to pay it off as fast as you can. And there's a lot of different ways that people go about this. If you're having trouble financially and you're in trouble with debt and paying things off, there are people you can go to, companies you can go to, debt counselors. There's a lot of companies out there who talk about putting all your debts together, consolidation. I would be very careful with that. A lot of those are scams. And the other thing I didn't get to, as far as debt and how it affects your financial well-being, if you have a lot of debt and you have a lot of requirements that you have to meet financially each month because you have to make minimum payments on this debt, you can get into a position where you're not going to have enough money, and you get into trouble with payday loans and things like that. And again, that's something that we'll cover more later, but those are very dangerous things to get involved in. When you're trying to get rid of your debt or pay down your bad debt, or you know, just be healthier financially, you know, there's some things you can do to make that better. One of the first ones is to look at your own spending habits. You know, we all have monthly bills we have to pay each month. You know, you have some of us have student loans, or we have, you know, mortgages, we have car payments and insurance and cell phone bills and utilities and things like that. Those are your constants. You know those are going to be there every month. Where you can change your spending habits is when you're looking at your other purchases, things you can cut back on, whether that be, you know, money in going out to dinner, or going out with your friends, or buying clothes, or gas to drive around, or vacations, or any number of things that you don't need, that are not a need, that are a want. And by cutting down on those, you're going to increase the amount of cash you have on hand each month to pay down your debt.